Blank says, we chased the paper trail, chased the breadcrumbs to find out where everything was. I knew where everything was that I was managing, but there was other levels of estate planning that needed to be taken care of. So today, what we wanted to do is we're going to bring on somebody that is trusted to us. We've worked with her for years, and she's going to talk about estate planning, some of the basics of what you can do, and so we don't have to chase any breadcrumbs, or more importantly, your heirs don't have to chase those breadcrumbs. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Kimberly Lee. She's an estate planning attorney here in the desert, and I'll be back later. Kimberly.
Thank you. I want to make sure. Can everybody hear me back there? With the microphone? Okay, good. Jim, thank you for the introduction, and I'm very flattered to be here today. When Eric told me last week there are over 100 people attending the luncheon, I was very surprised because this is typically a topic people try to avoid. So I have to tell you though, there are two things. The fear of loss and the denial of death are two of the strongest human coping mechanisms. So I must commend you to come here today to say, you know what, it's okay. I want to learn if something happens. Of course, something just happened now. What should we do? What are the different things that would happen? Now, I was told that I only have 30 minutes to do this. Typically, this presentation will last about 45 hours. So for the Facebook friends out there and clients out there, keep your computer plugged in. Since I only have 30 minutes, because Eric says they're not buying you dinner tonight, I will keep it to my allotted time, and we will then have 5 to 10 minutes of questions and answers at the end. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, terrific. So this is the agenda we're going to go over today. We are first going to go over the estate and tax and trust basics. Then we'll turn over to the 8 common mistakes that I see in our practice every single day, and hopefully make sure that you don't suffer these huge consequences. And then at the end of our presentation, we'll go over to the questions and answers. And I have also prepared a checklist for you, so that at the very end, you're not taking copious notes there, that you have something to take home. Actually, we'll talk about that with Eric later on. So let's get started. So, basic knowledge on the estate planning. Last wills and testaments and revocable living trust. How many of you have a trust or a will or both? Almost all of you, okay? These are not some magic documents. These are basically a set of instructions. These are the instructions that you read so that in the event you should lose capacity, you're able to have somebody whom you appoint to be able to manage your finances, to make sure they know who is supposed to do what, and also after your passing, who is supposed to get what and how and when. So keep that in mind when we talk about wills and trusts. And of course, the durable power of attorney, the healthcare directive, and the medical HIPAA authorization. These are there to protect you during the time of incapacity. We will all hope that we're lucky enough where we fall asleep one night and we don't wake up the next morning. Unfortunately, most of us will suffer a period of incapacity. So who's going to be in charge to make sure the bills are paid, all the taxes are returned when they're due? IRS doesn't care that you lose capacity. They still want you to file your taxes when it's supposed to be due. What about healthcare decisions? Who is going to make your healthcare decisions? Who's going to be your healthcare advocate when you're not able to do that for yourself? And of course, to protect your medical privacy, Congress has enacted the Healthcare Insurance and Accountability Act. And that's the HIPAA Act, where if you don't give express consent, nobody, including your family members, can get any medical information from the doctors or the hospital. So that must be prepared ahead of time. And of course, appropriate asset integration. If your assets are not properly integrated with your estate plan, when you pass away, there will be probate, there will be bad tax consequences when that occurs. So that's kind of a really 3-minute short explanation as to what the basics of the estate plan is. So let's turn over to the common mistakes that we see. There are 8 of them. I actually started with 20, but since I have 20, 30 minutes, I have to cut it down to 8. So first one is fail to send trustee notice. Not familiar familiar with the probate rules. Number 3, select the wrong option for the IRA. Number 4, pay unnecessary taxes. I'm not sure how many of you like to pay taxes, but most of us don't. Number 5, neglect to update the estate plan. Number 6, fail to update your joint ownership assets. Forget to review your beneficiary forms. And finally, not getting professional help. So let's go through each of them. Number 1, fail to send trustee notices. Now, how many of you have revocable trusts? Okay, so pretty much all of you. I'm not sure if you are aware. A revocable trust becomes irrevocable when you die. Did you know that? Some people do and some people don't. So if you have an individual trust, let's call this person Harry, because we have the title, What Happens When Blank Dies. I'll fill in the name with Harry. I hope they know Harry's here. So that would be our decedent. So if Harry has an individual trust and Harry dies, Harry's trust becomes irrevocable. That means that no one can change it ever again, because Harry is dead, right? Sally, the wife, can she change Harry's trust? No, she can't. Can Harry's son change the trust? No. Johnny can't do that either. Now, if it's a joint trust, if you're married and you have husband and wife, and you create a joint trust, when the first spouse passes away, when Harry passes away, possibly the trust will be partially irrevocable. So all this is really depending on the terms of the trust, which is the instructions. So it's really important to know what are the instructions. Most of the people who go to the attorney's office, they sign the documents and say, oh, I'm getting one of those living trust things. They don't realize that that's your set of instructions. It's really important to know what's going to happen when the first spouse dies or when you pass away. Now, what's important is this. Once the trust becomes irrevocable, the probate code requires that a trustee sends out the notices, and the suit of activities are required by the trustee. So you may or may not know that within 60 days of the date of death, the trustee is supposed to send out a notice to all the beneficiaries, right? Of course you won't know that, because you don't do this for a living. And also, if you have a joint trust and part of it becomes irrevocable, a trustee notice is also required to be sent out to the beneficiary. So the beneficiary knows that their interest or what they're going to receive is now vested. So for example, if Harry passes away and Sally does not send out the trustee notices, how would Johnny know something happened? Or probably Johnny would know because it's his dad, but maybe Susie, the niece, would not have known that she's supposed to receive something under the trust. Now, also there's a benefit to send out the trustee notices because it would start something called the statute of limitations of 120 days. That will prevent the beneficiaries from challenging the instructions, the terms of the trust. So in the blended family situation, you can imagine, sometimes you have Harry who is 75 years old and you have Sally who is 35. And she's younger than the children. So when Harry passes away, do you think the children are happy? Probably not. And depending on what Harry wanted to do, these instructions and also the trustee notices will be very important to make sure they're sent out. Number 2, not knowing the probate rules. Now, how many of you have heard terrible stories about probate? All of you. By the way, they are all true. Probate is a terrible process. It's expensive. It takes a lot of time, and also it's a very public process. And in the desert area, in the Coachella Valley, how many probate judges do you think we have? 1. That's exactly right. We have 1 probate judge. That's it. By the way, he's retiring this year. He said, I'm done with it. He's retiring in November. So they're going to have a new judge who's brand new in this practice area, and he's going to have to get up to speed very quickly. So it's going to be a very lengthy process. But there are some exceptions to the probate rules you may be interested to know. Number 1 is that there's something called a summary probate. That means that if you inadvertently left a bank account, for example, outside of a trust, typically will go through the probate process. But if that account is under the amount of $150,000, there's a short procedure that you don't have to go through the court process. There's a declaration we can prepare, and when you wait 40 days from the date of death, that account is then transferred out to the beneficiary or to the trust without going through that terrible lengthy process. Also, if you own real property that is of a small value as determined by the probate code. Now, the amount is $50,000. Probably it's not applicable to any house in Palm Desert area. But if you own real property, for example, near the Salton Sea, those lots, they're not worth very much. And sometimes people neglect to put that asset into the trust. You can actually use this procedure, which is using a court form, DE 305, to be able to transfer that property directly into the trust after the date of death of 6 months. Then you can avoid the whole probate process. So it's important to know these different exceptions to minimize the exposure to the family. Number 3, selecting the wrong option for the IRA. Now, if something happens to Harry, when Harry dies, typically if Harry selects a beneficiary for his IRA, there are 2 different main types of IRA. One is the type of IRA is Roth IRA or Roth 401k. Those are the assets that you have already paid income tax on. That means that you never have to pay taxes ever again. So if Sally inherits a Roth IRA, or Johnny, the son, inherits a Roth IRA, they don't have a required minimum distribution. They can take the money out anytime they want without paying any taxes. If they keep it in there, and you keep the account with the integrated wealth management, they grow the account tremendously, do you have to pay any taxes? No, ever, forever and ever. So Roth IRA is the most valuable asset you have in your portfolio. So make sure that you have the appropriate person named as a beneficiary. Now also, the traditional IRA, that's the account that there's a pre-tax dollar account. That means that you have not paid income tax on that money yet. And when Sally inherits that money from Harry, when Harry dies, what happens? Well, Sally has several options. One option is to elect, it's called a spousal rollover, to roll that account into Sally's name, so it becomes Sally's IRA. So she can live and be able to receive the money from that IRA as her husband may have intended. Sally can also make sure that she cash it out, take a lump sum distribution. Is that a good idea, Mark? No. Why not? Because you have to pay 100% of the income tax on that money. And believe me, people have made these mistakes by going to, for example, self-help advisors. They go to Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard, and they say, I want to cash out my inheritance, is an IRA account. Do you know what they do? They say, no problem, here's a form for you to fill out. Of course not, because they're not going to give the advice to the clients. So if you take the account to any of the integrated wealth management advisors, what do you think they would do to tell you? They would say, don't do it. Stop it. Don't do anything. Let's talk to the attorney. Let's figure it out. Make sure that why you want to do that. Now, if that account is only $5,000, is that okay? Probably, maybe. Maybe it's $200. Just cash it and then clean out the account. So you got to be really, really careful. Also, if Johnny inherits the account from Dad, Harry, he can also either take a lump sum distribution, which is not recommended, or he can elect to do an inherited IRA. Now it becomes Johnny's retirement account. Then Johnny can then do what's called a stretch out, use his own life expectancy to calculate the required minimum distribution. Because Johnny is much younger than Harry, his required minimum distribution will be a lot smaller, therefore allowing the power of tax deferral to be able to have this money invested for the future, and maybe someday leave it to Johnny's children at that point in time. So make sure you select the correct way to inherit IRA assets. And of course, sometimes if you see a situation where Harry passes away and Harry had named his revocable trust as a beneficiary, what happens? Well, IRS sees it this way. To have a beneficiary to inherit an IRA and to be able to not have the immediate tax consequences, that beneficiary must have a life expectancy. Now, since trust is an entity and not a person, he has no life expectancy. So when the asset, the IRA, hits the trust, you have something called a taxable event with the IRS. So all the income tax will be due at that point in time. To avoid that process, Harry's sitting here today and said, wait a minute, I don't want that to happen. What Harry could have done is to then talk to the estate planning attorney to make sure there's a conduit sub-trust provision in his revocable trust, in the instructions, to make sure that if there is a pre-tax dollar account hitting the trust, they want to make sure the IRS has the opportunity to see through, which is called a conduit, to see who is the beneficiary. Then they will see that Sally is a beneficiary, or Johnny is a beneficiary, and use that beneficiary's life expectancy to be able to calculate the required minimum distribution to avoid the immediate income tax consequences. Also, I had a client I want to share with you that her husband passed away, and they'd done the planning years ago. And when they went to the attorney, who has since passed away in Palm Desert, the attorney told the client, make sure you transfer everything into the trust to avoid probate. Is that advice correct? Well, generally, I would say yes. Unfortunately, the husband followed the instructions to the T. So he actually named the trust as a beneficiary of his IRA. Fast forward, husband had passed away. Wife came to our office and said, you know, I went to Vanguard, that's where my husband had the big IRA, and I told them that I need to fill out whatever paperwork, and the Vanguard says, here's a form. And so I took the form, I filled it out, I gave it to Vanguard, and I was talking to my accountant, and my accountant said, you need to go see an attorney immediately. And then she was referred to our office. And we looked at it, and I said, I have bad news for you. There's nothing we can do. That's already happened. Harry already made the decision. The instructions were in there. And it wasn't meant to be that way. The best we were able to do was to stretch out over the period of 5 years. So at least she's not paying taxes on all of it in one single year. So be very, very careful when you are doing the rollover or inheriting the pre-tax dollar accounts. Number 4, paying necessary taxes. Earlier I asked you that how many people would like to pay taxes? Well, I have some clients who don't mind paying taxes, but most of them, they hate paying taxes of any kind whatsoever. So I'm going to assume you are in that category. So we'll cover the estate tax, capital gains tax, also income tax potentially you can be exposed to. So if something happens to Harry, when Harry dies, he's dead. Sally, the surviving spouse, has 9 months to file with the IRS something called a portability election. That means that each person has a certain tax credit that we can use to minimize or eliminate the estate tax. So this year, the amount is $5.49 million. It covers most of us. If you can combine the credit with Harry and with Sally, you have $10.9 million. You don't have to pay any taxes. Now, once you pass that threshold, however, it's a heavy penalty. It's 40% of tax rates. So you want to make sure you stay down below that. So do you know how much money you're going to have when you die? I don't know. Because depending on how long you live, you'll be surprised when you talk to your advisor and just have them do a calculation. Say, you know what? I'm only getting the income. And I'm going to live on my income. Can you help me to grow the principal? Look, not to be too aggressive, be conservative, but still make money. And you'll be amazed the power of time and the power of compound interest, where they will calculate that, gee, if you live until 93, you're going to have an X amount of money. So you want to look at where it's going to be when you passed away, not where it is today. Because typically it's going to be much higher than you may anticipate. So Sally has 9 months from the date of death to file the estate tax return to elect the portability. If she missed that deadline, she's going to lose the $5.49 million of tax credit. Now, this tax credit is not just tax credit. It's worth real money. If you calculate the amount of actual dollars you would save, by saving this credit, it's worth about $2 million of real money. So this is a really important part to make sure you don't miss. Also, certain trusts have instructions to have a mandatory splitting of the trust assets after the first death. If you haven't read your instructions since after 2012, please read it again. Most trusts created prior to 2012 have a mandatory splitting requirement when the first spouse passes away. So that means that you may have a necessary process you have to get through, a lot of legal fees, accounting fees every single year thereafter. Very important to make sure they update it so that they can update to the current tax law. Also, capital gains tax. Now, when Harry passes away, you get something called a step up in tax basis. Does anybody know what a step up in tax basis is? Okay, so there are a few of you. That means that if I bought my Apple stock and I spend $30 to buy the Apple stock, fast forward, it's split 7 ways. Now it's worth 130 or something. All the money that I have from the $30 to the 130 is called capital gains. So when I sell my Apple stock, I have to pay taxes on that capital gains. The capital gains is anywhere from 15 to 20% federal and 13% California state. We have 12.5% or 13.5% in the state of California on top of the federal tax. So it's quite a bit of money. So how do we minimize having to pay this tax? If we do nothing, when Harry dies, there's a step up for Harry. But Sally's still alive. Sally's base is still down here. So by being proactive, if Harry and Sally had done planning during their lifetime, they could have entered into something called a community property agreement, which we are in one of the 10 states in the whole country that have that opportunity. So when Harry dies, Sally can get something called a double step up in tax basis, eliminate all the capital gains tax for their home, their rental property, their apartment building, their brokerage account, anything that they have that may have inherent gain in there. So it's very, very important to make sure this is done so that Sally doesn't have to pay unnecessary taxes. It's not unusual that we see that the surviving spouse changes the investment strategy or asks the advisor to do so. Harry maybe take more risks. Maybe he was more of a risk taker. Now Sally is inheriting all the money. She may want to sell the house, move closer to her children, or move to a senior community area, or they may want to clean up a portfolio so that she can have something that's more conservative. So in that situation, we want to make sure you minimize the capital gains tax. Now, what about income tax? Now, you may or may not know this, but if you leave the money to, say, Johnny, say Harry says, when I die, I'm going to leave $1 million to my son, Johnny, in trust, because Johnny is not good with money. Or maybe Johnny is married to a daughter-in-law that he didn't like. And that also maybe, Johnny has lawsuits pending out there. So there's some concerns for Johnny. So Dad wants to make sure it's held in trust for the son's benefit. So that $1 million gets invested with one of the advisors here. Of course, how much do you think you can return on $1 million? Conservatively. Can you return at 1%? Yes? I see nodding heads. Yeah, they could do 1% return. Okay, so 1% is about $12,000 in income, right? If the income is trapped in the Johnny's trust, which is an irrevocable trust, then it's going to be taxed when it hits the amount of $12,300. It will hit the highest income tax rate of 39.6%. How do we avoid that? You can avoid that by when Harry was alive, to do planning to make sure these incomes can be passed through to the beneficiary so that it can be paid on a lower income tax rate. So all of these things that happen on the back end, some things you can do something about, and some you have to be proactive to make sure these preparations are done ahead of time, so later on when Harry dies, Sally or Johnny are not suffering from these different consequences. Number 5, neglect to update the estate plan. Now remember, if Harry and Sally are married, how many married couples are out here? Okay, so lots of married couples. Who is on your trust as a successor trustee if something happens to you? Probably the wife or the husband. Who is your healthcare directive is named? Who is the power of attorney agent? It's probably your husband. It's probably your wife. So what happens when they pass away? If you do nothing, if you don't have a contingent person in place, there could potentially be consequences. To make sure that when there's a death in the family, you have to review your existing planning. What about Johnny? If Johnny is named as a successor trustee, and Johnny passes away first, and the parents are grieving, and they're not doing anything, they're not thinking about updating their planning, bad things could happen. When parents pass away, Johnny is not there to be able to be the successor trustee. Now, we have a professional fiduciary here. Yes?
Yes.
Two of them here. They are, I'm not sure any of you know, that professional fiduciary is a whole profession. Some families may not have children to be able to step in when they pass away, or they may not have children whom they trust. And you can, at that point in time, actually name an individual to step in to handle these different responsibilities. Also, you may want to review your distribution decisions. Sometimes that things happen, you haven't reviewed it yet. So when a spouse passes away, it's a perfect opportunity to look at decisions that you have made years ago is still appropriate. Number 6, fail to update joint ownership assets. How many of you have joint bank accounts with your wife or children or husband? Many of you, okay? You do that for multiple reasons. Number 1, sometimes you leave an account out there because in case something happens, that the other person can write checks, you don't have to go through the trust process. That's okay. However, if one owner passes away, what happens? The other owner can still access the account, right? So if Harry dies, can Sally still write checks from their joint account? Of course. But Sally must then sit down and review all the account information, because when Sally dies, who's going to write a check? No one. Well, wait a minute. Johnny is my power of attorney, is my son. He's trustworthy. However, you may or may not know this, but your power of attorney will die with you. Johnny's power goes away when you pass away. The bank will freeze the account until either, if it's under $150,000, what happens? We have a summary probate proceeding, right, to bring it back. Or if it's over $150,000, what happens to it? It goes through the probate process. So you want to make sure those joint accounts are only good if somebody lives. So be careful. Also, joint tenancy properties. Sometimes you want to have joint tenancy properties because you say, you know what, I'm going to sell the house anyway. So I'll keep in joint tenancy, and then once I sell it, when I buy the new house, then I will put it into the trust. I had somebody ask me earlier before the presentation whether or not the house should be transferred into the trust. I said yes, because if you don't, when you passed away, it's going to go through probate before it gets poured over back into the trust. Very simple to take care of on the front end, very big, huge consequences on the back end. Same thing with the community property with the right of survivorship. Many people believe that they want to take advantage of the double step up in tax basis. So therefore, they would take the real property in the title as community property with right of survivorship, and they never transfer that into the trust. When the first spouse passes away, when Harry dies, Sally can get a full step up. However, if at that point in time she does not transfer the assets into the trust, then when Sally dies, there will be a probate process. You don't have to take the title in community property with the right of survivorship to take advantage of the double step up in tax basis. What you can do is actually separately create a community property agreement that will cover not only the real property, but also your brokerage account and all the other investments. Number 7, not reviewing the beneficiary forms. Now this is very, very important, but biggest mistake people make. They simply do not update the beneficiary forms. When do you have to update the beneficiary forms? Well, obviously when Harry dies, because Harry probably had named Sally as the beneficiary for his life insurance policy. Who do you think is on Sally's life insurance policy? Harry. But Harry is now dead. If Sally, the grieving widow, do you think the first thing she's going to think about when her husband dies is to say, you know what, I'm going to go online to download the beneficiary form, fill it out, and turn it into the insurance company? Of course not. So very often this is neglected, and then what happens when Sally dies? It goes through probates. And we have gone through multiple probates of exactly the same situation where clients who were not our clients, they did the planning, they would never gone back to the attorney to review, didn't have a financial advisor, didn't talk about it with the accountants, and then the second spouse passes away, sometimes within the same year. They're called broken heart syndrome, right? When in a long-term marriage, the first spouse passes away, the second spouse grieved, heartbreak, and passed away the same year within 6 months period. So what happens in that situation? Going through the probate process again. So make sure that all these are reviewed, especially for retirement accounts, life insurance policies, annuity contracts, and also there's something called a beneficiary deed. How many of you have heard of the beneficiary deed? Almost none. And there's a reason why. It just got enacted into law last year. So this is a brand new thing in California. This is kind of a poor man's way to do estate planning. That means that if you have a real property, you don't want to create a trust, because you don't want to spend the money. You say, you know what? I want to make sure when I die, the property goes to Johnny. So I'm just going to use the beneficiary deed, which now you're allowed to in California, and then Harry will name Johnny as a beneficiary. When Harry dies, what happens to the property? Does it go through probate? No, it goes to Johnny. So, but it's a one-trick pony. It does very specific results. So we don't recommend it unless it's a specific situation that we recommend that tool. Mostly, a revocable trust or other type of trust are a much better way of being able to handle distribution provisions. Number 8, not getting professional help. I have to tell you, I work with a lot of advisors, as you can imagine. Most of our clients have financial advisors. And of course, what's important is to have an integrated financial advisor. I picked this word not because I'm giving this presentation, because that's a word I actually use. An integrated financial advisor is somebody who is not just there to invest your money for you. They're there to make sure your estate plan is up to date, your beneficiary forms are appropriately reviewed, they meet with you, they want to know your family, they want to know your long-term goals, short-term goals, they want to help you with your cash flow analysis. What happens when Harry dies? Does Sally have enough cash flow? Does the pension that Harry was receiving end on his death? Or does that continue on? What's going to happen if certain assets, when Harry dies, go to his children? What happened to Sally? Will Sally have enough to live on? So those are important questions that the advisor will sit down and talk to you before it happens. So very, very important to look at integrated advisor. And I know that Integrated Wealth is one of the only advisors I know actually who does it's called a Life in a Book, to make sure that helps you to have all your information in one place. So when you passed away, you're not leaving a mess behind for your family members or the professional fiduciaries. They do a lot of cleanup, right? Also, CPAs. CPAs are invaluable. Now, do I know about taxes? I think I have more knowledge than the average Joe. Now, do I have an account? Absolutely. Accountants are not there to just fill out the 1040 forms to file for tax return. They're there to give you advice, to minimize that exposure that you have. They're worth every dime that you pay them. Just make sure you select a good CPA. Of course, estate planning attorneys, we're the necessary evil. We create a probate process, so we can help you to avoid the process, right? But you want to make sure that if you don't do it, guess what? We're here anyway to clean up on the back end. But I want to make sure you take a proactive step to be able to minimize the consequences when Harry dies. Now, it's very important to have the 3 different advisors to work together like a 3-legged stool so that they can cooperate and talk to each other as to, wait a minute, the beneficiary form needs to be updated. Should it be the trust or should it be Sally? Should it be a conduit sub-trust in there? How would it be so that the client's objective can be reached? I want to tell you a story about not using advisors. Recently, actually currently still going on, we're almost done with it. A client came in. She had, we'll call her Sally, her husband Harry. Sally had her trust, Harry had his trust, and they have a joint trust together. This is a blended family. Because Harry had children from a previous marriage, and Sally has children from her previous marriage. So of course, they have 3 different pots of money. The part of money that's joint trust is actually for their home. So if something happens to one of them, the surviving spouse gets the house. The rest of the assets are all separate. Harry, of course, sold a shopping center, one of his shopping centers, and he got $2 million. So he decided he's going to walk down the street to Palm Desert, to one of the banks, and he'll open a bank account in Harry's name. Harry figured, you know what, I'll just then later on go and transfer that account into my trust. I'll take care of it later. The problem is that later never came. Harry had a massive heart attack and died. Sally came to our office because she went to the bank, and the bank says, well, you need to go talk to an attorney. Everything is frozen. So Sally came to our office, and we looked at the situation. We said, okay, this has got to go through probate. So that $2 million bank account is going through the probate process. And the process probably costs anywhere from $75,000 to $80,000 for that process. Okay? Now, of course, it gets worse. Because after the probate process, there's a pour-over will. The pour-over will poured Harry's $2 million into the joint trust. And that $2 million was supposed to go to his children, not to Sally. To make matter even worse than that, Sally gets a K-1 for distribution from that sale of the shopping center, and she had to cut a check for $650,000 to the IRS. And this is all during the time she's grieving the loss of her husband. So I tell you that advisors are pertinent in these kind of situations. If you rewind this, what could have been different? If Harry, before he sold the shopping center, had talked to an accountant, he probably could have minimized a lot of the capital gains tax to figure out what to do, maybe do a 1031 exchange, and so that, because he's older, he's going to get a step up when he died. They probably would do something different. Also, if he had talked to an advisor, they would have said, if they walk into Integrated Wealth and say, you know what, I just sold my shopping center and I got $2 million. Do you think they would say, just go and open an account in your own name? They said, no, let's look at where it needs to go. It goes to your children. This is your separate asset. We should name that into your separate trust. Let's talk to an attorney to make sure the terms are still appropriate, because now we have a lot more money in there. Okay? So make sure that this is really important, because the consequence is a lot worse. Now the children don't get the money. They were the intended beneficiaries. We're going through probate. The wife is devastated. They just paid a huge tax bill. So it's a terrible circumstances. Don't do that to your loved ones. So with that, we're going to segue into the checklist. I have prepared a 7-page checklist. I'm the queen of checklists. We have literally hundreds of checklists in our office to make sure all the details are taken care of. My husband even had a checklist for making the morning shake to make sure we had a protein powder, all the appropriate vitamins are in place. When I travel, I have a checklist to make sure I don't forget anything. Now this is because I have forgotten things. I have traveled and said, darn it, forgot my lipstick. Darn it, forgot my computer plug. Forgot my phone charger. So now everything I've ever forgotten are now on the checklist, so I never forget again. So these things are the checklist of things that happens when somebody passes away. And it's in detail from calling 911 when the death occurs, to whom should contact, whom you should notify, and what paperwork you should have to go to the financial advisor, and go to the attorney, and go to the CPA. But because it's a 7-page document, and Eric would have to print 700 plus pages and staple all of them, what we decided to do is that he's going to email them to you so that you can print and staple the 7 pages on your own. So thank you so much. I think my time is up. We have presentations. So let's go through questions and answers. Go ahead.
For your estate planning attorney, if you had somebody draw up your estate, when you die, do your beneficiaries have to go to that person? Is that where they get the information, or do they go to your safe or whatever?
I'm going to repeat the questions because I know you want to get me. So the question is, if you have attorney A draft your trust and prepare your trust during your lifetime, when you passed away, does Johnny, the son, have to go to the same attorney? The answer is no. Okay? Now, usually it's helpful because the attorney has all the information, has all the historical, what happened in the past. Also, the attorney has met with the parents, so they know exactly what they're trying to accomplish. Now, if you go back to the attorney doesn't get along with Johnny. Johnny can choose any attorneys that he wants.
Maybe the attorney died, is what I mean.
The attorney could die, or attorney could retire, or he could move out of the area, so you can go to any attorney that you want. And that is the reason why the instructions are so important, because the attorney who prepared the instructions may not be the one who has to follow it. That makes it even more important to have really clear instructions.
Okay, let me
Okay, I'm going to have him be the...
Thank you, very helpful information. You had touched on Roth IRAs, and you had touched on standard IRAs. What about SEPs?
Everybody heard the question of SEP IRA is a type of traditional IRA. So think of IRA as two different types. One type is the one that's pre-tax dollar account. One is no tax, after-tax dollar account. So the SEP IRA is treated exactly the same way as a traditional IRA. Oh, I'm going to have Chris here. You got a haircut, I didn't recognize you.
You had mentioned revocable trust and irrevocable trust. Can you comment on living trust?
Yes. So a revocable trust has multiple names. It can sometimes be called living trust. Sometimes it's called a family trust. So it's not so much the name that will determine what kind of trust it is. It's the terms of the trust, the instructions. So you would name, sometimes we have clients naming the trust as, the Mickey Mouse Trust. Doesn't mean it's revocable or irrevocable. Because typically when you have a living trust, they determine if you're still living. But once you're dead, the living trust does not change the name to the dead trust. It still stays a living trust, just like a name, but the term has changed. Anyone else?
see if I can walk fast. Got short legs.
My question is about taxes. You said that if you inherit money from Harry when he dies, son, daughter, whatever, there's a tax situation. If this money's coming from Harry, hasn't he taken care of all his tax situation so that if whoever inherits it, they'd be paying a double tax? And is that not right?
You're absolutely correct. We're talking about, there's three different kind of taxes. Income tax, capital gains tax, and the estate tax. So the income tax has been taken care of by Harry during his lifetime, except for the IRA accounts, right? Remember, that's deferred. So Harry never paid the income tax on the IRA. Now, when Harry passes away, with proper planning, there's a step up. So he eliminates the capital gains tax. But there's still an estate tax issue out there. These are not mutually exclusive. So on the estate tax part, if the amount of the total estate for Harry is above the amount of $5.49 million this year, then any amount that's over will be taxed at 40%. Is that a penalty? 100%. I tell clients the estate tax is a penalty tax. It's an elective tax because if they're willing to do planning, they don't have to pay any of the estate tax. But most people are not willing to take the proactive steps. They don't want to think about it, talk about it, cost money. I'm just going to deal with it later, and sometimes later is too late. And then Johnny's the one who has to deal with it. We have multiple beneficiaries when the parents do not wish to do planning for whatever reason. Of course, we send out a CYA letter. You understand you will have a tax exposure when you pass away. Please do planning. They say, nah, Kimberly, I'm okay. I'm just going to live forever. I hear this. The children are writing millions of dollars of checks to the IRS. So you're absolutely right. It is a penalty.
Sometimes that 5.4 is not still 5.4 because somehow you've used a lot of it up. How is it used up ahead of time?
Good question. So there's something called the gift tax, there's something called the estate tax. And these two taxes unify a debt. That means that if I'm giving a credit of $5.49 million this year, and I give away $1 million to my son, I have to file something called the gift tax return. I don't have to pay any taxes because I just use up my credit. So when I die later this year, the IRS would deduct that $1 million of gift tax I already used up against my $5.49 million. So when I die, I only have $4.49 million. So they combine at the end when a person passes away. Did that answer your question? Chris, you better run faster. Come on, run, Chris, run.
You prepared my trust years ago, and I'm well past time to update it. And so life circumstances have changed a little bit in terms of my co-trustees. I'm wondering if you can take a part out of the trust, such as a home, separate it, and leave it to one of the trustees. How can you differentiate?
I'm not sure. Can you tell me a little bit more on the question?
So my children are co-trustees.
Okay.
So I intended for everything at the time I created the trust to be divided equally. But that's no longer really necessary. So to put a home in one of the trustees' names and not the other, how does, well, you know, right?
I think I understand the question. So your question is, if you have a trust and you have 2 children, before you wanted to have equal distribution to the children, but now circumstances have changed, you want to have an unequal distribution. Now, there's a difference between beneficiary and the trustee. The trustee is a person who is like a banker at the bank. They open a drawer, they are full of cash. It's not his money. It belongs to the account owner. Same thing as in the trust. The trustee is a person who is in charge, but not the beneficiary. So the beneficiaries are the people who actually will be receiving the money. If you have an equal distribution to the children, I usually don't recommend them to be the co-trustees. You will have hard feelings. So we may want to discuss how the instructions will be to make sure your objective, your intentions are going to be honored and followed through when you pass away.
Maybe one more question, and then we'll,
There's 2 at one table.
maybe 2.
Okay, 2 last questions.
2 last questions. See if I can. And who are the 2 last ones? We have one, both right here. Okay, that makes it easy. Here, we'll go, I saw your hand up first. Let's go.
My question is distribution decisions. Can you, without changing your whole will, can you, now that you've updated it, a couple years have gone by, just gone in and just changed where you want to leave things, or the people who are being left things? Can you just change those?
So, yes, you can. You can do something called an amendment. You can change any part of it. So, an amendment and restatement are different in this way. So, for example, if I have a suit and I gain 50 pounds, and I go to my tailor and say, you know what, can you do some alteration on my jacket? She's going to tell me I need to buy a new jacket. Okay? Now, if I gain 5 pounds or I lost 5 pounds, I can go to my tailor and they say, okay, yeah, no problem, we'll take it right here and here. That's an amendment. That's a minor change. Now, distribution changes depending on what that is. For example, if you're adding a $10,000 gift to your best friend, that can absolutely be done by an amendment. If you come in and say, you know what, I was going to give Sally $1 million, but I changed my mind. She hates me, by the way. She's probably going to sue me and sue everyone when I die. I would recommend a restatement so that there's no notice requirement to Sally when you passed away. So depending on the circumstances, one may be more appropriate than the other.
I don't understand restatement. What do you mean?
So the restatement is basically update completely, like buying a new suit for your trust. It will still remain the same name, so you don't have to retransfer all the assets. But I would suggest that you talk to an attorney to look at what would be most appropriate under the circumstances.
Is it better to have a bank account and brokerage accounts set up as TOD accounts, or have them set up as part of your trust, and then the money goes to a specific beneficiary?
The answer is the typical attorney answer, which is depends. In general, your bank accounts and brokerage accounts should be in the trust. Now, there are some exceptions. For example, you may have a joint account that you use to pay your HOA fees, your utilities, and those are typically set up with direct deposit, direct debit, Social Security comes in, everything goes out. That account, a lot of times, is kind of cumbersome to move them into the trust. So we would recommend to have a TOD, which is transfer or payable on debt account on those. But in general, everything should be held in the trust. It's a much better way, provided you have good instructions in the trust. Okay? Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
So I'm the youngest of 5. My oldest sister, Terry, is a school teacher. Kathy is next, and she had 2 men's clothing stores. My brother Tom is next, and he's also in merchandising. My brother Ed is an attorney, and you all know what I do. One guess, who did my mom name as her executor? You. I only wish. It was not me. It was not my brother, the attorney. No, it was the retired men's clothing store owner. Why? Because she moved to Naples near my mom. So she just thought, well, that'll be easy on her. And my sister, unfortunately, had to go through probate, and has anyone been through probate or been a successor trustee and settled estates? Sorry. Not a lot of fun. The only thing good that came out of it is my sister had to work with the attorney down in Florida so often that even though she's married, he asked her out on a date. So it made her feel kind of hot at 63. It's an interesting topic, estate planning. Why I say that is, please talk to your beneficiaries, talk to your executors, your successor trustees, to make sure they really want, well, beneficiaries did the thing, successor trustees and executors, to make sure they want that job. Because it is a long, arduous process sometimes if the estate was not done correctly. It's a tough conversation to have. That's why we did create, and Kimberly mentioned, the life in the book. I think we have a little picture here. No? There it is. It really is a basic tool. We actually have a physical book with a checklist. Thanks to Kimberly, we got some information from her. But it just goes through everything that you should be doing and having those tough conversations, because it's going to be tougher if you don't have the conversations. And again, your beneficiaries left chasing breadcrumbs. So thank you for coming. A couple housekeeping things. We do have a What's on Your Mind form at every table. This is just topics, conversations that you want to see happening. If you want to get a copy of Life in the Book, you can just write down there in the comments, you want a copy of the Life in the Book. This is our 5th of these programs, Your Life Integrated programs this season. We have 2 more coming up, so look out for the emails for those. They're going to be in March, and then again in April. April's our finale. Some people want an open bar at the finale. I don't know if we can make that happen. But again, Kimberly, thank you so much. It's great. We've worked with her for years, and it's just been a great experience. So thank you, Kimberly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also, I think I talked to one of the advisors here. If any of you want our office to review your planning, we typically charge a consultation fee. But because you come here to the luncheon today, we're going to then be happy to offer that as a complimentary review. But just make sure when you call our office, tell them that you were here at the luncheon. Thank you.
A contact number?
Contact number 760-776-9977. So your advisors at Integrated Wealth they all have our contact information.
It all included in your email tomorrow?
Yeah, it will be including an email where Eric will send out tomorrow with the checklist. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all.